Should you give your artists an advance? If you're a record label, if you're a new record label or you're an existing record label, you may have heard of an advance. What is that? Well, it's usually when a record label signs an artist, they give them a batch of money, maybe $1,000, maybe $10,000, as a way for them to live off of while they're making a record, or to use that money to make a record. And then that advance is recoupable, which means the label can get that money back off of future album sales. And so you might give an artist, let's say $1,000, and then 3 months later, you release a record. The first $1,000 that's made from the sales of that record goes to you to recoup that $1,000 advance. So should you as a record label give an advance to artists? That's totally up to you, and it's up to your budget. Most labels, most small independent labels don't do advances. It's just not something that you can afford, and there's no sense in putting yourself out of money if the artist is just going to have to pay it back later. And so it's basically them getting $1,000 now and not getting anything for the next couple of months, or $10,000 and not getting anything for the next year while you're recouped. So it's kind of pointless. It seemed as kind of pointless in the indie music community based on DIY labels, small labels. But for bigger labels or medium-sized labels, if you are at a point where you can give an artist $5,000 or $10,000 because you're confident that you can at least make that back, then that's a beautiful thing. I love to see that, because then an artist can pay rent for 6 months and not have to worry about that. And they can focus on developing their show or booking tour dates or writing for their next album. So you don't have to give your artist an advance. That's an agreement between you and the artist. If you just say up front, this is not something that I can afford. I can afford to maybe make CDs or make vinyl, or I can afford to put a little bit of money into advertising, but I can't afford to give you an advance. If hopefully the artist you're working with understands that. If not, and you can't afford an advance, then don't work with that artist. That just doesn't make sense. If you can afford an advance, then it's a beautiful thing. I think it's a great way. Sometimes what I do is when I pay a royalty to an artist, I actually will bump it up by a couple $100 just to give them a little bit more money, knowing that that'll come in the next couple of months. And so you can do it that way as well. Go to otherrecordlabels.com/toolkit. If you have questions about running a record label or even starting a record label, then we have compiled everything, including our workbook, our checklists, some templates, a sample recording contract. Everything is put together in our free toolkit that you can download at otherrecordlabels.com/toolkit.